14 predators went savage in Zootopia. The official story would have you believe that a disgruntled prey supremacist named Dawn Bellwether weaponized a flower called the Night Howler to incite a race war. She wanted prey animals to fear predators. She wanted power. And that is true. Bellwether confessed on tape. Case closed. Except I went through the victim list and something doesn't add up. The ZPD investigated these disappearances for 2 weeks before Judy Hopps got the case. 14 predators gone. If your goal is random terror, maximum chaos to turn prey against predator, you'd expect a scattered pattern. A polar bear here, a jaguar there, no connection. But one victim didn't fit. Emmitt Otterton, a florist. A florist who worked for the most powerful crime boss in Tundratown. A florist who, according to that crime boss, had something important he wanted to discuss the night he disappeared. Otterton wasn't random. He was a specific problem that needed to disappear.
The lynxes are killers, and they have no honor. And this Tundratown Expansion only makes them more dangerous. Territorial animals will do anything for more land.
And suddenly, the Night Howler conspiracy isn't about species tension at all. It's all about real estate. Here's a detail the movie breezes past. Nick Wilde tells Chief Bogo the ZPD has been working the missing mammals cases for 2 weeks. Mrs. Otterton says her husband has been missing for 10 days. Even if Nick's rounding, that puts Otterton somewhere in the middle of the disappearances, not necessarily the beginning. He wasn't patient zero. The pattern was already established before anyone touched the florist. So why does Otterton matter? Because he's the victim that doesn't fit. The movie introduces him as a mild-mannered florist. His wife comes to the ZPD begging for help. She shows Judy a photo of him with their family, 2 kids, sweet little Otter, completely harmless. Except he's not just a florist. When Judy and Nick track down his last known location, they end up in the back of a limo heading straight to Mr. Big's compound. And when they ask the crime boss about Otterton, he says this.
Otterton is my florist. He's like a part of the family. He had something important he wanted to discuss. That's why I sent that car to pick him up. But he never arrived.
Hold up. So Otterton wasn't randomly selected. He was intercepted. He had intelligence. He was trying to deliver to Mr. Big. And then he was darted before he could deliver it. Think about what a florist would notice. Industrial quantities of a specific flower being moved through unusual channels. Bulk purchases that don't match normal demands. Otterton worked in the botanical trade. If anyone would spot the Night Howler supply chain, it was definitely him. He figured it out. He tried to warn his boss, but he never made it. Now look at the next targeted hit. Manchus is a black jaguar who works as Mr. Big's personal chauffeur. He's the driver of the limo that picked up Otterton, which means he's the only witness to whatever Otterton was screaming about before he went savage. And what was Otterton screaming?
There was no warning. He just kept yelling about the Night Howlers. Over and over, the Night Howlers!
Otterton absolutely figured it out. He knew about the Night Howlers and he was trying to warn Mr. Big. And Manchus heard the warning. So when does Manchus get darted? Not that night, not the next day. He survives for days in hiding. But the exact moment Judy Hopps shows up to interview him, a sniper takes him out. Bellwether had access to the city's traffic cameras. She didn't send Judy to Manchus. Mr. Big gave her that lead. But Bellwether was watching. She used Judy as a bird dog to flush out the witness, then had Doug silence him before he could give a statement. Someone was checking off boxes. Just stack the victims, watch who benefits. The early Night Howler attacks might have been random. Create panic, get predators on the news acting like monsters. That's Bellwether's ideological project. But Otterton and Manchus, those were surgical strikes against Mr. Big's intelligence and logistics network. Otterton is Mr. Big's florist, his eyes and ears in the botanical trade, the exact industry where Night Howlers would be grown and distributed, and the guy who spotted the plot. Manchus is Mr. Big's chauffeur, his logistics, the only witness who heard Otterton's warning. Take out the informant, silence the witness, and blind the most powerful crime family in Tundratown to the weapon being used against them. And here's what the first movie never explains. Why Tundratown? To understand why someone would launch a biological weapons campaign against Mr. Big's operation, you need to understand what Tundratown actually is. Zootopia isn't a normal city. It's an artificial ecosystem held together by weather walls, massive climate-controlled barriers that let polar bears live blocks away from camels. Tundratown is the cold side of this system. It requires enormous energy to maintain sub-zero temperatures in what appears to be a temperate zone. Whoever controls these weather walls controls the city's life support. And for a century, one family has controlled that technology, the Lynxleys. In Zootopia 2, we learned the Lynxley family is preparing something called the Tundratown Expansion. The news announces it early in the film.
Tundratown Expansion will be starting soon. Residents continue to raise concerns about the future of their neighborhood.
This isn't mere urban development. When Judy and Nick meet a basilisk named Jesus in the Hidden Marsh Market, he explains exactly what's at stake.
And that's when the Lynxleys expanded Tundratown the first time. And it's happening again. The expansion is going here. Marsh Market will be buried in snow. We'll all get pushed out. Those lynxes will get more land. And there's no way to stop them.
The Lynxleys have done this before. 100 years ago, they expanded Tundratown and buried an entire reptile district under ice. Now they're doing it again. But there's a problem. He runs the limo service. He has family relationships with local businesses. He provides protection, enforces contracts, and maintains order. In a district where the ZPD has minimal presence, Mr. Big is the government. The Lynxleys can't expand into territory controlled by an entrenched crime syndicate, not legally and not without a fight, unless that syndicate gets destabilized first. Looking back, now the victim list makes sense. You don't start a race war by hitting random predators. You start a hostile takeover by hitting your enemy's infrastructure. Otterton knew about the Night Howlers because he worked in the floral industry. He tried to warn Mr. Big, and he was silenced. Manchus heard the warning, and he was silenced. The subsequent attacks were created as a cover story. They made it look like random predator violence. Then they let Bellwether spin her prey supremacy narrative. But the opening moves were precision strikes against Mr. Big's entire network. Here's the question no one asks in the movie. Who funded Doug's lab? Bellwether was an assistant mayor making a government salary. She worked out of a closet. She was literally shoved out of photo ops by Lionheart. But Doug's operation had a mobile lab, custom weaponry, detailed surveillance on targets, and a supply chain for industrial quantities of Night Howler extract. That takes capital and infrastructure. It takes someone with resources far beyond a mid-level bureaucrat. Now, I do want to be careful here. I'm not saying Bellwether was innocent. She wasn't. She pulled the trigger, literally, on Nick in the museum. She confessed to framing Lionheart. She had genuine ideological motivation. But ideology and funding are different things. Bellwether wanted prey supremacy. She wanted predators feared and marginalized. She says it herself.
But prey outnumber predators 10 to 1. Think of it. 90% of the population united against a common enemy will be unstoppable.
That's her motive. Fear, power, the little sheep finally getting to run things. But who materially benefits from her campaign? Not Bellwether, she ends up in prison. Not the prey population, they end up terrified. Not the predators, obviously. The Lynxleys benefit. Every savage attack destabilizes Tundratown. Every predator who goes feral weakens Mr. Big's muscle. Every news cycle about predator violence distracts from the real estate play happening in the background. And when Bellwether gets caught, the Lynxleys are untouched. Their name never even comes up. The investigation ends with a sheep in handcuffs in a city that thinks the conspiracy is over. Zootopia 2 confirms what the first movie only hinted at. The Lynxleys control the entire government. After Bellwether's arrest, Zootopia gets a new mayor, Brian Windancer, a former actor. When Gary the Snake kidnaps the Lynxley patriarch Milton, watch how Milton responds.
I will say this once, Brian. You will retrieve the journal and bury them. Or maybe I chose the wrong mayor. Did I choose the wrong mayor?
Did I choose the wrong mayor? Milton doesn't ask the mayor for help. he doesn't request, he threatens, because in his mind, the mayor works for him. This isn't subtext. The Lynxley family openly treats the executive branch of Zootopia as their personal enforcement arm. And if they have this much control after the Bellwether scandal, how much control did they have during it? But if the Lynxleys were behind the Night Howler attacks, why would Bellwether confess without naming them? Here's the thing. Bellwether might not have known. She's a useful idiot. She had the ideology and she had the access, traffic cameras and city infrastructure, and she had the motivation to hate predators. Someone just had to fund the operation and point her at the right targets. Doug's lab, the custom serum guns, and the supply chain, none of that requires Bellwether to know who's writing the checks. She thinks she's running a revolution when she's actually running an errand. Here's where both movies click together. Zootopia 2 reveals that the Lynxley family fortune is built on crime. 100 years ago, Ebenezer Lynxley stole the weather wall technology from a pit viper named Agnes the Snake. He murdered a witness, his own tortoise maid, and framed Agnes for the killing. Then he expanded Tundratown, burying the entire reptile district under ice. That Zootennial everyone celebrates, it's the anniversary of a cover-up. But here's what most of us missed. The reptiles weren't the only ones displaced. When the Lynxleys buried Reptile Ravine under snow, they didn't just erase the snakes. They created Tundratown, a new district that someone had to govern. And in the absence of legitimate authority, that someone became the Big Family. The Arctic Shrew built his empire in the frozen ruins of the Lynxley crime. For 100 years, two powers have controlled Tundratown. The Lynxleys own the infrastructure, and the Big Family owns the streets. The Night Howler conspiracy was the Lynxleys' move to break that stalemate. So let's just lay out the timeline. 100 years ago, Ebenezer Lynxley steals Agnes the Snake's patent, murders a witness, and buries the reptile district and expands Tundratown. The Lynxley dynasty is born. Then there's the intervening century. The Big Family rises to power in Tundratown. They control logistics, protection, and local business. They're a state within a state that the Lynxleys can't dislodge so easily. In Zootopia 1, the Night Howler attacks begin. Otterton and Manchus, Mr. Big's intelligence and logistics, get specifically targeted amid the chaos. A prey supremacist named Bellwether takes the fall. Mr. Big's operation is weakened. And in Zootopia 2, with the Mafia destabilized and a puppet mayor installed, the Lynxleys announced the Tundratown Expansion, a project that will bury Marsh Market, where the surviving reptiles hide, and consolidate their control over the district. It's not two separate conspiracies. It's one operation executed over a century. But here's something I can't fully explain yet. In Zootopia 2, Mr. Big's granddaughter says this.
You said we were going to make some nice shoes for Mr. Weaselton.
Oh, that's my girl.
Nice shoes is mob slang. Concrete shoes. Mr. Big wants Duke Weaselton dead. Now, Weaselton is the petty thief who stole the Night Howler bulbs in the first movie, and he was the supply chain. Without his theft, Doug's lab doesn't have raw material. Did Mr. Big figure that out? Is this belated payback for the guy who supplied the weapon that took down his crew? Or does Mr. Big just hate Weaselton for unrelated reasons, like selling him that skunk butt rug? I genuinely don't know. The film doesn't tell us. But if Mr. Big connected those dots, that's confirmation he knows the Night Howler attacks were aimed at him. Anyway, drop your theory on this one in the comments. I really want to hear what you think about it. And just one more thing. The Night Howler serum doesn't just make predators violent. It strips them of legal personhood. A savage criminal can't own property, testify, or hold territory. The moment Otterton went feral, anything he knew about the Night Howlers became inadmissible in a court. The moment Manchus went savage, his testimony died. This is the same tool the Lynxleys used 100 years ago. When they wanted to erase the reptiles, they declared snakes savage and dangerous. They banned them from the city. Then they buried their homes. When they wanted to weaken Mr. Big, they declared his associates savage, and they removed them from the board. Savage isn't a biological state, but a legal instrument. It's how you delegitimize populations that inconvenience you. So here's my question for you. Do you think Disney intended this? Because the more I look at these two films, the more I see a coherent story about generational wealth, stolen technology, and the criminalization of inconvenient people. The Lynxleys aren't mere villains, they're the entire system. Drop your take down in the comments. Did Disney accidentally make an anti-capitalist manifesto, or is this just what happens when you give a kids movie too much lore? At the end of Zootopia 2, the Lynxleys are arrested. The reptiles reintegrate into the city. Agnes the snake is finally credited as the true founder of Zootopia. It's justice, right? Except for one detail. In the post-credits scene, Judy listens to a recording of Nick on her carrot pen.
Love you, partner.
She smiles. She leaves her apartment, and a bird feather lands on her windowsill. Throughout both films, birds are conspicuously absent. The directors confirmed Zootopia was designed as a mammals-only city. No birds, and no explanation as to why. If reptiles were the third caste, erased and buried to protect the mammalian myth, what does that feather represent? The Lynxleys drew a line at the weather walls. Mammals inside, everyone else out. They buried the snakes, and they froze out the cold-blooded. But they couldn't wall off the sky. The feather isn't hope. It's a warning. The next boundary is about to fall. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Click like, subscribe, and click here where I prove that Sid Phillips was never the villain and Woody lied to all of us.